Okay, welcome everybody to SHC Hot Ones. I am Mr. Rocha, and today I am joined by Mr. Nat and Mr. Grace. Welcome everybody. So just so you know, we've got a few things different today. Obviously, we're not on campus due to the ongoing COVID-19 crisis, and we entered into a purple state, so we wanted to be extra cautious and extra safe. So we're doing things outside. Mr. Knapp and Mr. Grace are actually together right now, and they are, if you don't mind just showing them, super social distance. They are quite a ways away, so if you feel comfortable and you're ready, you can go ahead and take off your mask. I, unfortunately, was just not cool enough to go and be invited to the Cool Kids Club, so I am at my home. It's actually a lot more comfortable in here and probably a little bit warmer. How are you two doing today?
I'm doing well. It's a little chilly out in Walnut Creek. We also didn't want to make you drive all the way out here. We absolutely would have loved to have you, Carlos, but no, social distance is the way to go. But yeah, I'm doing well. Stuart, how you doing?
I'm doing great, and I am just excited we could make this happen.
Yep. As you can tell, we'll also be dealing with a little bit of those mic reverb issues, but we'll figure it out as we go along the way. Why don't we start with Mr. Knapp? How are you when it comes to heat, and what have you done to prepare for this challenge, if at all?
I love spicy foods, but I've done almost nothing to prepare for this. And I have tried one of the sauces that's like near the end before, and it's just way too hot for me. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay, we will definitely, you're probably in better shape than me because I'm actually not good with spice, so I don't know why I'm hosting this thing. Maybe we'll have to tap out. And Mr. Grace, how about you? How are you? How are you with spice? What have you done to prepare for this?
Sounds in the background probably include dog racing between my dog Alfie and Mr. Knapp's dog Ishmael. I've done nothing to prepare in my younger years. I did eat a lot of hot sauce in college, but had to take a big break after that, so I'm feeling very unprepared.
Okay, cool. Well, we will see. We're going to run the gauntlet. One other thing that's a little bit different, I just thought I would let you know. I am back to my season 11 personal lineup of hot sauces due to the fact that we had to kind of throw this thing together at the last minute, and we went through quite a length to bring you this content. Both Mr. Knapp and Mr. Grace have slightly different hot sauces, but we found something that will be about equivalent. And we do have some overlap there. So when you're ready, we will begin, I will begin at least with the first one, the classic hot sauce at about 1,800 Scoville. You have already prearranged your chicken. I am doing the more refined chicken thigh today because that's what I had available. So go ahead and take that first bite whenever you gentlemen are ready, and then I will ask the first question.
Cheers.
Cheers. Okay.
I mean, that's hotter than I'd like it to be. It's like already hotter than I'd like it to be for the first one.
Oh boy, well, you're in for a run. And just so you know, there's no shame in tapping out, at least from me. We'll see what your students have to say.
Yeah.
So you are both English teachers. And I think that what I wanted to do today is kind of stick with that literary theme, because what a lot of people don't know about me is I'm actually originally an English literature major. So I rarely get the chance to geek out. Usually I'm with my fiance and she's just like, womp, womp, womp. Okay, that's just too much. So tell me, what made you both, I assume, I hope, love books? And what was like the first book that you picked out on your own that stands out to you in your mind? And since you're unmuted, we'll just go with Mr. Knapp first.
So I fell in love with books. It was like a long process for me. I was not someone that immediately was in love with reading from like a young age. Although I always read a lot, I kind of like, I had like a love-hate relationship with it. But then when I got to college, I just enjoyed my English classes so much more than any of my other classes. It became, you know, part of like much more embedded as who I am. But I still remember my first book that I picked out on my own. I unfortunately forget the author because it was a children's book, but it was called Teammates. And it was about the story of Jackie Robinson and Pee Wee Reese and Jackie Robinson's story of breaking the color barrier in Major League Baseball. That was like my favorite book when I was little. I must have read it a million times. So that was like the first book I picked out for myself. I remember that.
What about you, Mr. Grace?
So I think I have to give a shout out to my parents here. There was a lot of bedtime book reading when I was a kid, and especially to my mom. She's probably going to watch this. Hi, Mom. My mom would even like write her own stories for us to read together. I remember a lot of stories about Timothy the Mouse. So I think that growing up in that kind of supportive environment made me really excited about storytelling. And it just sort of stuck with me. You know, I think in high school, I had some really great English teachers that encouraged me. And then like Mr. Knapp, when I went to college, I just kept taking the stuff that was inspiring me. And that was usually English courses.
Stuart actually just got me in a lot of trouble because my mom read every single book in the Cincinnati Public Library to me when I was little, and she like is very fond of reminding us of that, and especially now that I've become an English teacher. So the fact that I did not mention that, I probably already have like a voicemail about it. So just so you know, Mom, I appreciate everything that you ever did to make me a good reader too, much like Stuart's amazing mother.
Yeah, like you too. I also had parents who would read to me every single night, and I think that's what got me into reading, at least initially. But unlike you two, you know, my first book was Look for Trucks by Tom Lapadula and illustrated by Jean Ingoglia, which is a far different than trying to break the color line. But you know what? I got there eventually. Okay. So before we go on to number two, let me ask you another question. So obviously English teachers, how did you get there? What was your journey like? And then what did you do before this? Either one of you.
Stuart, you go first.
Sorry, question one more time. I think you said, what did we do before English?
Yeah, like what did you do before you became a teacher, or did you get into it right away? Like how did you become an English teacher? Like what were you doing before now?
So I think that I was drawn to a lot of professional work that was centered on language before I settled on teaching. And I was rebelling against everyone who told me when I was an English major, oh, so you're going to teach. So I explored a little bit of going into law, was a paralegal for a little while. I was in marketing. Those like, 36 character Google ads or whatever in the early days of pay-per-click advertising. But none of that really satisfied, I think, my more creative side. And obviously the love for storytelling wasn't quite there in the legal world and the advertising world. So I gave in finally. And even though most people when I was growing up said, you're going to be a teacher, I finally succumbed to that suggestion.
Okay. And what about you, Mr. Knapp?
So similar to Stuart, well, a little bit different. I knew I wanted to be a teacher from a young age, but like my favorite high school teacher told me not to become a teacher, and my favorite college professor told me not to become a teacher. So that kind of dissuaded me when I graduated college. So I actually got my first job back east working for the federal government, and then worked out here for Facebook for a while. And that's what brought me out to California originally. I was working down in Silicon Valley, but I loved the people I worked with, but I did not love my job. And I decided to stop fighting my my initial desires to become a teacher. And I applied to grad school and got a master's and got a job at SHC, and I've been there ever since.
Right on. I love that. You know, I was trying to pay attention to everything you were saying. I got most of it, like I'd say 99%, but I would be remiss and I would be lying if I said that Mr. Grace was trying to steal your thunder there by showing off the dog, you know, trying to win points with people back at home. So on the next one, I promise,
I mean,
full attention. You know,
no worries, no stress.
So why don't we move on to number two right now? I cannot pronounce this, so I'm not going to try, but mine is sweet tamarind and smoky chili hot sauce. It's medium spicy, it says, and it's coming in at 4,200 Scoville. So when you two are ready, you can go on to your next wing.
Our number two is classic sriracha, which I think is like 1,700, so a little bit behind you.
Okay. So I started with Mr. Knapp last time, so I'll start with you, Mr. Grace, with your mouth full. What book are you currently reading, or alternatively, if you're not reading something because you're busy as a teacher, what book would you recommend at the moment?
Okay, so I Just finished reading a collection of short stories by Zora Neale Hurston, and I got to admit, it didn't hold up to Their Eyes Were Watching God. It wasn't her best work. That's probably why most of them weren't published. So I wouldn't recommend that. I am rereading now The Subtle Knife because I really love his Dark Materials, and I'm watching the HBO series, and I wanted to get back into it and experience it because I haven't read it in probably a decade or more. But I've had to recommend one. I finished Neil Gaiman's American Gods about a month or two ago, and that book, I don't know why it took me so long to read it, and it kind of blew my mind. It was really ambitious, and I appreciated how much he was able to accomplish within that novel.
Yeah, I actually love American Gods, so I'm glad that you mentioned that. More people need to read it. What about you, Mr. Knapp?
So, while my last answer may have upset my mother because I didn't reference her first, this one will make her really happy. She's been dying for me to read Say Nothing by Patrick Keefe. And I just started it like this week. I'm like very early in it, but I'm super interested about Ireland and the stories there. It's told in like a very narrative sense. I really like nonfiction. Being an English teacher, I teach fiction a lot, so I like to read nonfiction in my spare time, and I would totally recommend that. But I'm also a mystery, like thriller novel, like pulp fiction type. So I really liked A Time for Mercy by John Grisham. That was his new one that came out recently. So I read that, and it was like a continuation of one of his earlier ones I'd read. So I like that airport style fiction too, big time.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I'm going to switch gears for just a second before I forget. But I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I might have it mixed up. I believe that Mr. Grace is a swimmer and you are a biker, right?
Well, I would say I was a rower first, but biker now, yes.
What has your workout routine looked like or not looked like over the break? And how does that play in keeping you sane or not, depending on how your fitness level is right now? Let's go.
So,
yeah, sorry, I'm being a bad host. I need to pick somebody. My apologies.
I was not in the pool from probably March till November, till this month, and for good reason. I think that a lot of places closed up and needed to figure out the virus. There's one spot over at Compolindo High School where they have a great program. It's hard to get a spot, but you can reserve a lane, and it's very safe and socially distanced. So I have been able to get back in the pool this month, and it's really helped me out. I think that even if it's not as often as I normally used to, it balances out. So when I'm not swimming, I try to balance it with hiking and really just getting outside, because it's hard to do the things that we love during this pandemic.
Sure. Mr. Knapp?
So unlike Stuart, my bike riding's actually been going great. I think I put in I'm over the summer, it was close to 2,000 miles. Now I'm over that. And it's also been nice because you can be socially distant and still, like, I've had a friend over where he takes his bike off the back of his car. We're both wearing masks. Then we can kind of go out on a ride together, and we can stay 6 feet away from each other, but still kind of hang out. So I had some of my college friends and I've been going on bike rides, and that's just been a really nice outlet for me over the last few months. So that's been really great.
Funny story, but explains the importance of social distancing. A couple months ago, Mr. Knapp actually got stranded on his bike, had a flat tire, had nobody else to call, and I was really flattered. He called me, and I put on my mask, drove over there in my little electric car, grabbed him off the side of the street, and we both kept our masks on and the windows down the whole time, and it was just nice to be able to see him. So
that's awesome.
I actually agree, and part of the reason I called stop it, dog. So part of the reason why I called Stuart was because I knew that he had been social distancing. And I was like, I know that he's the first person that I'm going to see in like months, and I'm the first person he's going to see in months. So we were able to keep our social bubble small, and that trust was there too, which is nice.
That's excellent. I think that that's really shows a testament to like how SHC keeps that community and camaraderie really close. I also think it's a testament to the character that you would trust the person with the electric car to pick you up. You know, you had to throw that in there, just get some extra brownie points. So I see also too that you, Mr. Grace, you're chowing down on some French fries. So I'm going probably a little too slow for you. So let's move on to number 3. We are going to go on. I am on Fiji Fire Native Bongo Chili Hot Sauce, and that is coming in at 14,300 Scoville for me. I already have a bit on here, so.
Ours is smoked maple onion, and it's like it's a little bit less than yours, but still 5 digits, I think. So yeah.
Do a little check-in here. How are you gentlemen doing? I think, Mr. Grace, you can go first.
This is the most socialization I think I've had in months. I'm having a great time.
Likewise, this is great. I'm getting my lunch in. I'm getting some wings. This is a good time.
That's awesome.
A little bit of delay.
I always wonder how my contestants are feeling and whether or not they're just kind of faking a smile for the camera, but I believe you. I trust you. English people, we just can't lie. We've just got good hearts, I'm telling you. So there is a common saying among book aficionados that the movie was good, but the book was better. Is that true for most movies or TV series based on books? And are there any movies or TV series that lend themselves even better than a book series or book that you have read?
I mean, I know my answer. I have a strong opinion that One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest movie is far superior to the book. I think that movie's excellent. I think it's an all-time performance by Jack Nicholson. And it's not that I don't stop, buddy. It's not that I don't like the book. I do, but I think the movie's excellent. So that's my answer. I have a long opinion I've had.
So since I mentioned I was rereading The Subtle Knife, I don't know if anyone saw when they tried to make The Golden Compass into a movie. It was like early 2000s, Daniel Craig, Nicole Kidman. Sam Elliott was fantastic in that film, but like other than that, they just rushed the whole thing. And it was like, yeah, I mean, that's why they didn't make a second and third one, because it was terrible. The HBO series is much better because they're taking the time, right, to develop the characters. I don't know. I mean, I think I would just add to what Mr. Knapp said, that the only moments where I really feel that sometimes film can transcend the text is I'm often impressed what film can do with plays, just because it changes everything. And I know you're moving into a different genre, so to speak, but I do appreciate that most of the time.
It's a great point, Stuart. I love showing plays when we read like Macbeth to the class and stuff. I like to make plays come to life and watch those on film. Great call.
Yeah, I think that that's really true too, because I didn't really appreciate reading like Shakespeare until I was also watching something to associate with it. Just because it's not normal. It's not the normal tendency for us to read. Most people haven't even been introduced to reading plays until you get to high school. So it does change up the dynamic quite a bit. Have either of you ever tried your hand at writing short stories, poetries, a novel? And can you tell us a little bit about what you may or may not have tried or accomplished and what your writing process might look like? And if you haven't done any of that, but I can tell by both of your side-eye glances that you have, what would you like to write someday?
I mean, Stuart kind of pointed at me, so I guess I'll go first. But I've only tried like that about a dozen times. So yes, definitely, for sure. Big time creative writer. I love creative writing. I think that it's something that I like to push my students to do. So I think that that's like a really amazing outlet. I've found that I always try to like start something big, and I have a couple projects that I'm like working on, but I think it's one of those things where I'm really good at characters and setting, and I struggle a little bit with like plot development. So I think that I need to work on what I would tell my students to do too, is I need to work on my outlines a little bit and make sure that I see the destination, not just the journey. So that's like my writing issues. That's when I get writer's block anyway.
Okay. Mr. Grace?
So I was kind of the writing nerd a little bit in high school, and was involved with the creative magazine, the equivalent of Oracle, which was called Grok. Um, and then my concentration both in undergraduate college and graduate school was literature and creative writing. So I was required to um, essentially write a book length work of poetry for both. And if you went digging around the library of University of Virginia or USC, you would probably come across some pretty terrible poetry by Mr. Grace. Other than that, I took one class in grad school trying my hand at short stories, and it was excruciating for me. A really, really positive experience, but really hard because I think growing up writing poetry gave me this almost OCD fixation on every single word. And it just took me too long to get a story on the page. Whereas I had friends that were fiction writers and, pumping out novels, and they were like, you got to let go, man. Just put it out there.
Yeah, not all of us can be as prolific as like a Stephen King knocking out like 12 or 13 novels a year or however many he does it. So I appreciate that. Before we move on to number 4, just a quick check-in. How are you doing?
So far, so good for me. The last sauce has a little bit of delayed heat, so I definitely have a little bit of a baseline, my mouth is hot feeling going. But I think that on the next sauce, we actually have the same one as you, so we're all going to be back caught up on the Scoville level, which is good.
That is perfect. That's a great transition to the, what am I viewing now? The double take salsa, Scotch bonnet, and mustard hot sauce at 37,000 Scoville. I'm sorry, Mr. Grace, I forgot to ask you. I skipped over you. How are you doing?
Mike is right. There's a little heat developing. It's my lips are still attached, but I'm more conscious that they are there.
Okay. All right. Dig in. Okay. So speaking of poetry,
good mustard flavor, Carlos, on that one.
It's delicious, right? I love mustard. It's my favorite. I love anything spicy mustard. I cook with it a lot. Use it in my dressings. It's kind of my jam. Mustard on a hot dog. Got to do it. So speaking of poetry, so my favorite author is Patrick Rothfuss. I don't know if either one of you are familiar with him or his works. Fantasy author, and in one of his novels, he writes. The main character basically says, a poet is a musician that can't sing. Words have to find a man's mind before they touch his heart, and some men's minds are woeful small targets. Music touches their hearts directly, no matter how small or stubborn the mind of the man who listens. Do you think that there's any validity to that argument at all, which might explain why people, or why do you think people oftentimes struggle with poetry? I know there's a lot of fans out there, and just for the record, Rothfuss does write poetry. But why do you think people oftentimes struggle with poetry, I guess is what I'm asking. I'm sorry. Yep, Mr. Grace.
I think that a lot of folks go into poetry believing that there's a right and a wrong way to do it. That if it doesn't appeal to them or they don't understand it, that somehow they're doing it wrong. And I think that that's flawed. I think that part of what makes poetry so wonderful is the amount of possibility that it contains. And so I could read a poem and get something completely different than what Mr. Knapp would get. And that's sort of the point. And it also allows us to become pretty opinionated. And I think that's part of what I loved about it. Anyone that doesn't like this type of poetry, but loves that type, should embrace that. And I also think we define it too narrowly, and I'll let Mr. Knapp probably take this one, because both of us teach music, particularly rap and R&B, and really any type of music. I mean, I read song lyrics for my prayers in class, for goodness sake. And, if we define poetry broadly, it opens up a whole new world for most folks.
Yeah, I'd like to agree with Stuart on that big time. I think first of all, I'd like to shout out my poetry selective from the spring of 2019. That was a great class. So that was a lot of fun to teach, and it really helped me become a better teacher of poetry. And I think that, kind of like what Stuart said, a lot of kids feel like poetry is really foreign to them, but in reality, we're all like super creative. And I think it's just about trying to figure out how to get that outlet. Sorry, that heat's getting to me a little bit. How to make sure that outlet comes out in a positive way. Is really, I don't know what I'm saying at this point. But regardless, I think that a big misconception about poetry is that you kind of have to go about it one way. And I think that getting kids into writing poetry and teaching music as poetry, like Stuart said, that was one of the papers in the class, is like, is music poetry? And the kids had to take a stance on it. I think that making them, or like helping kids like figure out where they stand on an issue, to me is more important than necessarily like, you know, making sure every kid like gets traditional poetry.
Sure. I think that both of your answers were quite poetic, and I would stand with you both in saying that. Well, I don't know where you fall on it, but I would say that music is poetry, in my opinion. Kind of on the other end of the spectrum, where if we would argue that poetry, at least when people think about it traditionally, is less accessible. You know, comic books, I guess, is what I'm asking. I think the heat's getting to me a little bit too. So Sherman Alexie, who is a writer of The Absolute True Diaries of a Part-Time Indian, he basically wrote in one of his essays that said that, you know, comics taught me how to read, like Superman taught me how to read and write when I didn't necessarily understand that. Do either of you like comic books? Did you grow up with them? And why do you think that there's such a fascination with comic book characters, especially now with like the Marvel MCU and the DCU, when it used to be, I guess, previously like super nerdy and like inaccessible, but now it's like mainstream. Let's go with Mr. Knapp first.
So I was never a huge traditional comic book kid in the sense of like Superman comics or Spider-Man comics or Batman comics or anything like that. But I read a lot of like when I was really little, I read a lot of like comic strips like Garfield. Like I loved Calvin and Hobbes was like my all-time favorite. So in that sense, I was like really into comics. And I think that adding, like we teach at SHC graphic novels course, I think that like adding in visual elements to storytelling is huge. I think it can be a really accessible way, especially for kids who don't think that they're immediately into reading, for a way to access it, right? And I like Calvin and Hobbes for me was like part of my childhood, so I'm like a big fan of like that. Maybe not like comics the way you were talking, Mr. Rocha, but like similar vein, if that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Grace.
I was a fan of Wolverine comics and also a bit of Punisher growing up. I bought a couple of those now and then. Though I think that, I don't know, to get to your question about why this resurgence maybe in comic book culture, and I remember when the first Spider-Man came out, Tobey Maguire, right? And I think that film, it was like this convergence of visual technology, CGI, right, with the storytelling. You know, I mean, it's not that we didn't have Spider-Man before that. It's just that, you know, when we tried to make it on the screen, it was either like, you know, can't be adults in spandex, or it was, you know, low quality cartoons. So to have the CGI and the technology of the visuals then blend with the storytelling, I mean, to me, like that was one of the films that really kicked off the whole movement toward, you know, the Batman series and then also Avengers after that.
I think that those are both very valid questions. I think that you're right about the CGI. And by the way, I actually love Calvin and Hobbes too, which is excellent. So let's move on. I feel like I don't really have a timer anymore, so I don't know how long we've been here. So I don't want to keep you out in the cold for too long. So let's move on to number 5. So this one is the Hot Ones Los Calientes Rojo hot sauce, coming in at 49,000 Scoville. And I put quite a bit on this one accidentally. So.
Well, Mr. Rocha, our number 5 is your number 6. So we are having the hot green Thai sauce. So we're kind of trading steps here a little bit, but yeah.
Okay, let's see. Um, whew. So I think we all have like friends who say like, oh, I wish I could read more, but I can't focus, or like, I wish I could read more, but I just can't for one reason or another. Like, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to get into reading but just can't break that barrier or can't maintain that concentration? And why do you think that is? Sorry, bad host again.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We're not even in the same room. You're doing great. Stuart and I are just stuffing our mouths full of food. So
We're just hungry. Neither of us ate lunch. We're starving.
Oh gosh. Okay, we gotta keep moving
There
then.
you go.
Okay. Confession. For the first 5 years that I taught at SH, I think I only really read for pleasure over the summer. I said it. It's true. About a year ago, I decided that that was sinful and I needed to make a change. So now reading for pleasure is just a bedtime activity. And I usually, it could be for like 30 seconds before I fall asleep, but it also helps me, I think, sort of just quiet my mind. And I really encourage anyone who thinks they don't have the time to just put it before bed, because you have to go to bed, and don't put expectations on yourself, right? It doesn't matter how far you get in the book. It could be one sentence or it could be 100 pages that night. And I never stopped. I mean, I've just sort of kept reading since I started that practice a year ago. So
that's actually really smart. I'm gonna shout out my dad on this one because he's a huge fan of books on tape, especially when we were growing up. He was one of the busiest people I knew. He was always, long commutes and long days at work, and he always got his reading in by being really diligent about books on tape. And especially public libraries have their own apps where you can download them. There's Audible, which is like a paid app that you can download books on tape. Yeah, SHC library. So like I'm a big fan of books on tape for people on the go, like especially, and I'll recommend them to my students too. I think that sometimes when kids are having a hard time grasping a text, if they read along with the book on tape, that can really reinforce it and lock it in. So I'm a big books on tape guy. And even if they're going slow, you can speed them up a little bit too. So you can kind of do it at your own pace. So yeah.
I think that those are both really great tips. Like doing something like habitually that you can associate it with is kind of like a trigger to Mr. Grace's thing. And then to Mr. Knapp, basically using audio or having like an assistant aid to like kind of like drive you through and make it maybe more interactive in a sense. Maybe not quite the right word, but having that assist there can be really beneficial. I think we're gonna move on to number 6 in the interest of time, and because you're hungry, let's go. Right? So mine is the Thai green hot sauce. What's your number 6?
It's a mango habanero hot sauce.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more on the Scovilles than the Thai, but really close.
Okay. This one's coming at 74,000. I think that now might be a good time to play a game. So I'm going to read each of you quotes, and I already just have them in this order, and you guys can choose who goes first, and you have to tell me where it's from, okay? Do you think you're ready for this? They're mostly classic literature.
If I do not, Greg has to edit this out.
Okay, who's first?
I think we decide.
Yeah.
All right.
You're up? Okay.
Yeah, you get to get the assist if I need it.
Stay gold, blank, stay gold.
Oh, I know this.
Rob Lowe, Tom Cruise in the movie.
What?
Rob Lowe and Tom Cruise in the movie. Robert Frost quote.
I know. I'm not placing it. I'm not a big Tom Cruise. What is it?
Greasers in the book.
I'm still not placing it.
Hold on. Stay gold, pony boy, stay gold.
I don't know. I'm not. That's not what I know. What is that?
The Outsiders.
Oh yeah. No, I haven't read that in forever. Man, I should have got that. That's bad.
All right, Mr. Grace, are you up?
Oh, he's gonna beat me.
Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Oh no. Oh no.
I do not know.
We're teaching the author. right now. It's
Oh, Shakespeare. But which one?
It's Shakespeare, right?
It is Shakespeare.
Okay.
Something to do with.
It's not Hamlet.
I don't.
It's definitely not Macbeth. I know that.
No, it's not Macbeth.
It's not Hamlet.
I know that you're assisting each other, but we're getting that echo. I'll give you a hint. The hours on the clock.
I'm gonna get lifeline to Mike. Lifeline to Mike.
It has to be 12th night, right? It's hours on the clock. It's gonna be 12th night.
12th night.
All right. I redeemed myself a little.
Maybe we should just make this not a competition and just have it just play together. Okay.
I think that's the way to go, because then we can both look good, you know?
Oh,
That's
yeah,
really the point of it.
We want to stay employed.
Okay. Let's see. Not all who wander are lost. I'm looking at you, Nap.
I'm not gonna go. I don't immediately right. To me, that sounds. I want to be honest. That sounds very generic to me.
I mean, it's a well
That's
Right. Yeah. But that sounds like something I read on like a coffee.
Okay.
It's not a
Is
classic.
Oscar Wilde?
It's not a traditional
It's
classic.
not what?
It's not a classic. It's not something you traditionally read in school. It's something that you would read in your free time, especially if you're into fantasy, high fantasy.
Fortune cookie.
It's gotta be J.R.R. Tolkien then, right? Yeah.
Lord of the Rings. Okay.
All right. Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings. All right, we're getting there. We're helping our way through this.
We're going broad.
Winter is coming.
I mean, that's Game of Thrones.
J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah. No, other one. Martin.
Call me.
It's okay.
Call me Ishmael.
Okay, Mr. LaRocha, my dog is Ishmael. My dog is named Ishmael. There he is right there. Yeah, no, we know Moby Dick. We know Herman Melville. Don't try to get that. I'm a goalie. I'm blocking that every day. I got that.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife.
I think it's a Russian author. I think it's either Tolstoy or Dostoevsky. No, yeah, Tolstoy or Dostoevsky. Is it Russian? Am I totally off? He's shaking his head like I'm an idiot.
One more
So.
time.
Yeah.
Okay. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife, and it's by a woman.
We look terrible. We gotta edit this out. We
All
gotta
right.
edit this out. This is bad.
That one.
I'm so happy this isn't live.
That is Jane Austen.
No, I've never read that. I don't read. I haven't. I don't like. I'm not a huge Jane Austen guy, but yeah.
All right. Let's
You
move on.
need to get the AP Lit teachers. Come on. You're talking sophomore prep.
Oh boy. Oh boy. We'll have to come back. I've got some. We'll do it off air and see if you can get it.
Yeah, we gotta edit that part out because I'm also dragging the sophomores.
Let's move to number 7. Mine is the Pepper North Stargazer hot sauce.
This is called Atomic.
Atomic. Mine's coming in at 118,000 Scoville. And I put very little because I always struggle with this one. I'm being completely honest about it. Okay. Let's see. Where do we leave off? Okay. There are certain books that have been banned because they discuss controversial topics or perceived controversial topics, such as Tango Make 2, The Catcher in the Rye, Harry Potter. And some of those may seem silly to us, especially in hindsight, but to others, when you look at something today, at something maybe more controversial, okay? 13 Reasons Why, which is current, or something even more controversial like Mein Kampf, the book by Hitler. Do you think that there should be any books that are banned? Why or why not? Under what context? What are your thoughts on that, I guess? Nap, you're on mute, so you can go first.
My mouth is really hot. Is my first thought. Are you doing? My mouth is hot.
Warm, but I can take that.
Inherently, no, I don't believe in censorship. I don't think that books should be banned outright. I do believe in reading them in context. And, so for me, banning a book or a text is like banning knowledge, which, as we know, can lead to, history doomed to repeat itself, right? So because of that, don't want to ban books.
I'm essentially right with Stuart on this. I'm not in favor of banning books, regardless of how objectionable the content, mostly because I think it's we can always learn from the errors of history, and we can always learn from like the mistakes humans have made in the past, and that's the way we get better and improve. So by taking things off the shelves, we eliminate any possibility of learning from it and learn.
Okay, I like both your answers. I'm in complete agreement. As a history teacher, I feel like that's really important, is to not shy away from your history, even if the thoughts don't necessarily align with how we think and believe and feel today. It also shows you another perspective that maybe even if it's completely wrong, you at least understand somebody better or their argument. It only reinforces your argument as well. So I think that those are really good. I noticed that your faces have changed remarkably on that last one to very stern faces. And I think I saw some of you, I don't know who it was, I caught it very briefly, but was that ranch on a French fry? Yeah, yes.
Yes, it was.
Okay, so we're at that point. Do we need a moment?
Is that weird? I don't know. Or it's blue cheese or something. I got sauce over here.
do we need a moment, or are we good to power through this?
I'm good.
Okay. Number 8 for me, The Bomb Beyond Insanity Hot Sauce. I have 135,000 Scoville. How are you doing?
So this is a garlic reaper hot sauce, and I think it's like 1 million. So I think it's like 1 million.
Okay, I put extra on this one because I felt bad for kind of like shying away.
I don't know for sure if it's 1 million, but I'm just ballparking it. What's the last one? What's the last one on your list?
This is like 0 to 60, Mike.
I think it's good.
The last one is the final dab, and that one's 2 million.
Okay, so we have the final dab, and this one's less than that, but well, we're in the same conversation. All right, you want to do this?
Wow.
Oh, too much.
Okay, I gotta get it out before I forget. Okay, so
Oh my God.
in many I wanna remind you, we're being filmed. Watch any language that you may feel like you might want to come out right now.
That's not good. That's like pepper spray.
It smells like kitchen cleaner.
Okay, so in many ways, it's been argued that the works of fantasy and science fiction are a higher form of literary writing than nonfiction or fiction, yet we do not study Tolkien in school. Instead, we focus on reading works within the literary canon. What role does fantasy and science fiction play in our world, and will there ever be a time when we might study these works alongside Shakespeare? That's right, I'm hitting out the hard ones as you guys are. Oh my gosh.
My God, that is like pepper spray. Okay.
Oh no.
I'm happy with the literary canon, but I'm also down to expand it to include new works. I'm actually a huge science fiction fan. I love Robert Heinlein. I like Asimov's fine. I like what I read recently. I don't know. I like Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein. It's probably my favorite science fiction work. I wasn't really paying attention to the rest of the question because there's a war going on in my neighborhood.
Grace, are you gonna save Nat for a second, or are you dying?
I need you to read the question again.
Okay, so I'm basically asking, do you think that there will ever be a time, like what role do you think fantasy and science fiction plays in our world, and do you think there will ever be a time where we will read them and study them alongside like Shakespeare or Tolstoy or any of the other ones that we study in school?
I hope so. I think that, I'm sure that some people thought what Shakespeare was doing was wild and crazy, or any other items that we placed in our traditional canon. I think that it's too simple to place a whole genre like science fiction into being worthy or not, right? I think that the potential and depth, I'm dying here, of any story transcends. I can't think right now.
I'll sub in for you.
You get what I'm saying? Yes,
Science
it'd be
fiction's
great. It'd be great if we could, but you know what? They don't.
We teach speculative fiction at SHC and literature and science, so we do include, oh my God, my mouth, those in literary canon, but I think we can do better, and we can keep on especially like really good science fiction is some of the best writing there is. So I'm big on that. I'm sweating. I'm literally sweating. Not a
Don't
lot.
touch your eyes. Whatever you do, don't touch your eyes. You know, I think that Mr. Grace was teasing Mr. Knapp because Mr. Knapp was going to bring out a bunch of towels, and I think he might be regretting that decision to not have it at this moment. That was a pretty strong reaction, I've got to say. I'm kind of glad I'm not eating that one right now.
Yeah, it's called garlic reaper sauce.
Garlic. Oh man, you know, I just to stall for some time. I remember that there was a time where the novel, like the idea of a novel, was considered like comical. You know, it wasn't even considered like high form of art. And now that that's all we study, you know what I mean? Or not all we study, but it's a major component of what we study. And so I'm hopeful that maybe one day we'll take science fiction and fantasy a little bit more serious than maybe we do now, because it resonates with people for one reason or another. Oh boy. You're on mute. I maybe that's a good thing. I don't know, Mr.
You're
Gray.
saying he's panting. I'm panting too. Panting health.
So how about I toss you up like a little softball while we're waiting for you to just calm down. Tell me about your dogs.
Oh, Ishmael's the best. He sits right here and watches me eat all the time. But in addition to that, he goes on hikes with me. He's chases squirrels. He's hunting squirrels right now. So he's a fantastic companion. Yeah, you can see him behind Stuart right now trying to hunt squirrels. But in any case, I can't say enough good things about my amazing dog. So that's good.
Alfie's a good buddy. We rescued him. Oh man, 3 years ago now, I think. And I've had a couple dogs, but there he is. Right over there. Probably the easiest dog I've ever had and the most behaved. Even as a puppy, I think he had one accident in the house, and we, showed him the right way to do it, and never again. So easy.
Well, that's awesome. You two are good sports. Now you don't look so stern as you look a little forlorn. So I'm gonna push you through it. I think we're just gonna go for it. So this is
recovered, yeah. Recovering.
This
The
is
next one's bad
the
though.
Dingo Sauce Company Widowmaker hot sauce at 682,000 Scovilles.
So we are on our last dab hot sauce. It's your last one too. So I don't mind if you skip to the end of the line, but this is what 2 million. So we'll see how this goes.
Back with you. We'll call it here. I think we've been on for a while. So, and I appreciate you all. Woo. I'm gonna regret this decision. So the final dab is, or the last dab, or final dab, or whatever. It's 2 million Scoville. My question for you.
It tastes like.
How do you become a better writer?
My dog has opinions on this. All right. So the quickest way, oh my God, to become a better writer is to read. You got to read to become a better writer. I didn't make any progress as a writer until I started reading. It doesn't have to be stuff that, it doesn't have to be like high literature. It can be the sports page every day. It can be the fashion pages. It can be business, economics, news. It doesn't have to be like novels. Just the more you read, it automatically makes you a better writer. That's the number one step, in my opinion. You can't take the next step into high level writing until you become like a person that has read just a ton, because that'll seep into your writing. That's all I have time to say.
Completely agree with Mr. Knapp. You got to read. A lot of writing is imitation, not plagiarism, but imitation, right? I want you to think of it like music or watching your favorite athlete. Imitation is what, provides you, I think, with the foundation to then put your own style on it and make it your own. In addition, wait. Let go of perfection. Gotta let go of perfection, and you gotta find, I think, someone that you trust, or a group of people that you trust with your writing, to the point where you can then walk into a workshop scenario and feel confident enough that it's not about judgment. I would really encourage anyone, especially when you get to the college level, just take a introductory writing workshop, because everybody there is kind of a beginner, and it's humbling, but it's also inspiring. And I can't think anymore.
It's so hot.
You,
It's wildly hot.
you two are inspiring. My only addition would be, yeah, kind of like what you said, read and write. Like just write all the time, write anything. Whew, I'm dying. So you have gone through the gauntlet.
It's so bad.
You've gone through the gauntlet. You survived SHC's Hot Ones. This is primarily targeted at freshmen, but for anybody who's watching out there, anywhere in the world, you've survived it. You've earned it. What do you want to plug? What kind of message do you want to send out there to the freshmen or to anyone out there in the world right now?
I got a very clear, my message is awesome. I thank you for giving the opportunity to send my own message. And my message is to my wonderful new niece. Her name is Maddie. She was born over the summer, and she is wonderful, and I can't wait to meet her. I haven't been able to even meet her yet because she lives in New York City, but I can't wait to meet you, Maddie. You are, every day I get your photos is a highlight of my day. So shout out to you, newest Snap member of the family.
I'm going to piggyback on that, and just because I know that a lot of our freshmen are watching this through Frosh Fams. I was thinking the other day how I was imagining when you're seniors, and it made me smile because I felt like your resilience through this time and creating an SHC community, even when it feels like it's not what you expected and you can't be on campus, and you know, you've never even met Mr. Knapp and I face to face, and we don't even teach you because we're not freshman teachers. But I think you're amazing, and just keep it up. And I can't wait till we can do the real thing on campus.
Yeah, I think that I couldn't have said it better. Congratulations, Mr. Knapp, on your niece. Sorry, I'm dying.
Thank you for doing this with us. That's hot sauce is too hot for me right now.
And so from SHC, oh gosh, Mr. Grace, thank you for being so eloquent. From SHC Hot Ones, this is Mr. Rocha signing off. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy and actually eat at your leisure. I'm sure you're still very hungry. Eat it without the pain. Take care, everybody. Be kind to one another.